you're here and that you've committed to this project. And we do have a heavy lift workday ahead, but one that we hope will be energizing and that it will chart a very clear path for us as we move forward. So speaking of chartering, I'm going to introduce our good friend Paul Leather, who is with the Center for Innovation in Education. He has been our rock through the ideation and planning process to get to today. He has the distinct pleasure of working with Donnie Tran, Gretchen Morgan, and several others on his team. And so he's going to talk to us about our first work tasks ahead of us for this morning. So welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Lou. Good morning, everyone. As Lou said, really glad everybody made it back, particularly with what happened. What I think I saw was there were so many rockets lifting off here last night that it caused a disturbance up in the atmosphere, and there was thunderstorms and lightning and everything, right? So you folks have really gotten everything started here, and we're hoping to build on that today. So just a little bit about myself. Paul Leather, as you can tell, I've been around for a little bit of time. Been a former teacher from middle school and high school, guidance counselor, former administrator, and then I was the deputy commissioner in the New Hampshire Department of Education, where we advanced an alternative assessment and accountability system known as PACE, or Performance Assessment of Competency Education. I share that with you because although that was great work in its time and groundbreaking, I believe that this work, particularly after what I saw yesterday, is going to far exceed that work in New Hampshire. And if you are relentless and keep going and build on co-creation over time, you're really going to end up with something that really will make a change, not just in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, but across the nation. So I'm really pleased to be here. And we're going to talk today mostly about chartering, the chartering process, and we're going to particularly focus on the chartering of your standing committees. And we're going to talk a little bit about membership and all of that today. I'm a little like Lou. She's a fabulous person, but the one thing I'm like her is I have to use notes. I can't do it spontaneously, so I'm gonna do that here. Yesterday you saw this slide and this purpose statement for the council itself. It's been established to give broad stakeholder voice in the process of learning in Kentucky. You'll evaluate and recommend strategic practice and change, both through policy and by identifying and clarifying scaling practices as recommendations for funding and support by state policymakers and all citizens in the Commonwealth. So this is a big work that you're doing as a full group. You also saw this slide, and it really gives you a sense of the purpose statements of the standing committees. So creating vibrant learning experiences, which will help to support communities and districts to transform learning experiences both inside and outside of the classroom. Accelerating innovation, which will work to scale local innovations by changing the ways we both think about and actually do assessment and accountability at both the state and local levels. And building a bold new future with communities. The purpose of this committee is to recommend K-12 policy changes to respond to the needs of communities as they create new systems of teaching, learning, and assessment. And down in that gray area, there's a theory of action of this council, is that if we invest in innovation in communities, support quality in the scaling of innovation, and ensure that policy creation is responsive to innovators and communities, then Kentucky will transform its system of education and every student will be empowered and equipped to pursue a successful future. Now, theories of action are often big statements, right? But I think we really mean it here. We really mean creating something that will build a new structure that will get to that end, really the moonshot that Lou was talking about. So in your binders, the second document after the yellow separator, you will find what we are calling the United We Learn Organization and Purpose document. This was largely taken from the multi-year, multi-million-dollar grant application that was funded by the U.S. Department of Education to support this work that Jason referenced yesterday. It outlines both the council and the standing committees. It also lays out the deliverables expected in the grant, which have been parceled out to each of the standing committees. These include creating a new governance structure, which is the responsibility of the full council, building a bank of local assessment and accountability systems, supporting and scaling professional development activities across the Commonwealth, building a roadmap to create a competency-based system across the state, redesigning the Kentucky Department of Education's workflow to better support this work, and creating a legislative policy agenda. Once we break into the standing committees, your facilitators will work with you to build out these expectations and deliverables along with the work that you did yesterday. You thought about what your actual needs are from your perspectives, but we also need to take into consideration these expectations that are in the grant. If we need to change those, then there's a process that we do that with the U.S. Department of Education, but no, it's kind of like a bottom line expectation at this moment. So in terms of council standing committee membership, after the light blue separator in your binder, several pages in, you probably have already found the pages that list the standing committee membership. For example, you will see Building a Bold New Future members listed under the deep blue banner. This corresponds to the deep blue round stickers that these same members will find on your name tags if you haven't already changed your standing committee membership. Same for the Creating Vibrant Learning Experiences, where you have a yellow banner and corresponding yellow stickers, and the Accelerating Innovation Through Assessment and Accountability with a green banner and green stickers. Why don't you just take a moment and check to make sure you've got the right stickers based on what's on those sheets. So let me just say that if you're happy with your designation, that's great. We will be moving into these committees shortly. If you're not sure really as to your designation, we ask that you still join your committee and work with it and see if you can make it work for you and you can have a voice as to the work of that committee. If you really don't feel comfortable in the designation, then we ask that you see Karen Dodd in the back when we break to break into the committees. So Donnie Tran, the well-known Donnie Tran, he has a hat, by the way, a Kentucky hat. Donnie's going to talk a little bit about Portrait of a Learner and how it connects here.
Thanks. Yes, I just want to. Chair Gilbert gifted me a blue and white Wildcat themed hat. That's perfect for the weather that we're in. Yes, there it is. That she knit herself. So a woman of many talents. And she even made it large enough to fit on my oversized dome. So thanks for that. So just to recap a little bit of what we did yesterday, we ended up with a list of really thorny questions that came up from the process of listening to these exhibitions, discussing in groups. What are the big kind of thorny issues that each of the standing committees will take on? All of that is what we wanted to start with, that so that we would have a really clear idea, or at least a clear sort of mirage of a vision of what these standing committees will do. Yesterday, we also got into the Portrait of a Learner scenario. And this is not to center the Portrait of a Learner necessarily, but the Portrait of a Learner was a good example of how we might function as a council and how the standing committees might work. So I know that they're sort of flipping back and forth in the binder a bit this morning, but if you could take a look at that again, it's just near the beginning of yesterday's section. And I'm going to ask you not to look at the portrait of a learner, not the colorful wheel, but to the description of the functions of the standing committees that you saw on the left, where you saw this interplay between them. And I just remember Chris yesterday mentioning that it's not linear, right? It's going to be messy moving between them. And so what we'd like to offer up right now is just an opportunity to scan through that again and then ask yourselves this question. How do you want to see the standing committees work to advance education broadly, not the portrait of a learner specifically, but to advance education broadly and to answer the questions that we developed yesterday? How might the standing committees work in order to help answer those questions? So read over that for just a second, just to refresh yourself about how the different standing committees might work together. And then I'm just going to ask you to have a quick discussion at your tables. Like, how do we want to see the standing committees work? This is just to prime the pump of the standing committee work right now. All right. Sorry to cut these conversations. Yes. One thing that I often have to remind people is that every conversation is not your last bite at the apple of the whole thing. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm curious if there are things that came up from groups that we want everyone to hear. Is there a way in which you imagine the standing committees really working that you want to share out as we emerge into the standing committee work?
So one question we had is how are the committees going to be communicating amongst each other? Are there liaisons? Because if every committee kind of works in a silo, then it defeats the purpose. So what's the structure that's going to keep us all communicating amongst each other?
Yeah, it would be a real shame if we were really focused on de-siloing and then re-siloed into new standing committee structures. So I really appreciate that, Julie. There will be one of the last things we'll do today is actually map out the communication between the standing committees, considering our goals together.
Well, one of the things that we discussed, we didn't finish our discussion, but one of the things is the exploration of all of our communities as standing committees, and not to, so we said, for example, for Ms. Gilbert, she needs to go and see what it looks like in a Lexington school, what it looks like in a Louisville school, these urban areas, even in a rural area, to go and actually be a voice for them talking to students. So those are the kind of things that we're saying, exploring someone from our committee, exploring all of the environments, not just talking about them and using hearsay as what we use to guide us.
I really love that. I think it goes back to the point that Raider made yesterday, that we can hear from communities what they want to show us, but we also need to go and experience it and really see and validate our own inferences and our own understandings.
Good morning. One of the things Edna and I were discussing, I'm a family representative, and something I observed yesterday is there's very little representation from the families. And I know that's the intent of this, is the community representation, but those that represent families are also educators. So we're still an anomaly. And as we continue to proceed, I think it will be necessary to really get more parents and guardians that are not part of the education system involved. Because right now, even yesterday, it's just a bunch of educational conversations, or perspectives, educated perspectives. The acronyms that you hear during the SBDM meetings or school board meetings, and it's not playing for parents, also students. Fortunately, some of the students have had the exposure in some of your other programs, but I think that's absolutely necessary in order to get the community and stakeholder involvement that we need to continue to move forward.
I appreciate that so much. That one of the things that I learned from my friend Penny is that, yeah, I'm talking about you, is that it's really important for any one group to not feel like it's only represented by one person in a coalition like this. That there needs to be a real collection and real representation from across the spectrum of all the kind of family representation that could be here. I think that just connecting it back to the standing committee work, that we may want to expand the membership within the standing committees in order to involve more people. I mean, you all are the United We Learn Council, but with the standing committees, we may have more representation from some of the groups that you're talking about: families, students, and community members, business leaders, and so on.
Thank you, Donnie. And speaking as another parent who is intentionally not attached to any school district for just that reason, right? When we ask how we want these standing committees to work, I'm part of creating vibrant learning experiences. And what jumps out at me, and it's funny because we had two completely different perspectives about what this means: inviting districts to share how they are using the portrait of a learner, gathering examples of instructional practices, assessment techniques, and systems for accountability. I saw that, I read between the lines, and what I saw was, we're coming in and we're going to make sure that you're doing what you said you were going to do. Rachel saw it as, these are some really great ideas. How do we find these and how do we get you to share with other people? Completely different perspective. I saw it from the lens of a parent because what I told Rachel, what I told this table was what I saw. My perspective comes from the fact that I am part of a population that for decades has not been heard. I am representing 2 to 3 groups that traditionally don't have the voice, right? So that be parents. And when you talk about that, and I've said this before, I don't like being that checked box in a room. I'm the Black female. I'm the Black female parent, right? So I get that. All of that to say, how do we want these standing committees to work? I need it to have teeth, and I need us to be able to hold them accountable when they don't do what they say they're going to do.
Yes.
And just to add a little bit to the family perspective and not knowing the structure of the grant, what we've found in our organization to ensure wide participation by families and students, you need to stipend families and students, because most of us in this room are able to be here because our employers have said, yes, this is vital to our work, go be part of this. But if we really want to hear from all stakeholders, we need to make it possible for them to have input.
Thank you. So this conversation was just the beginning of us starting to think about the way that we want the standing committees to function. The rest of that work will occur in the standing committees themselves, and then we're going to come back all together because, again, to the siloing point, it's not about just deciding to have a bunch of things happen within the standing committees. We're going to reconnect and make sure that there is coherence between them later on this afternoon. But with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Paul. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Donnie, and thank you all for the really powerful comments that you shared today. Hopefully, as we go through the day, it'll get deeper and deeper. You'll get really get into these issues and talk about how we'll be able to address them together. When we talk about a charter, it's really about how are we going to work together. And so we really want to come out of this meeting with an understanding as to how each of the standing committees will work together and feed information to the full council, how that communication will go. We want to make sure that we have expectations, something that you worked on yesterday and really have a good start on, as well as we have those grant expectations that I mentioned earlier, hoping that the moonshot will continue and will actually land on the moon and get this work going. But clearly, we want to make sure that if this group were to meet again next May, what would we expect to see done by next May? In terms of working processes, we want to know how we're going to work together, how often we might meet, how we might meet, our meeting cadence, how we'll communicate and collaborate. We're also, similar to what Jason raised earlier, yesterday, there are interim leads of each of the standing committees, but we do expect somewhere down the road, whether you do it today or at a future meeting, that you'll elect a member of your standing committee to be the chair of your standing committee. And then also to talk about decision making as to what kind of recommendations you would bring forward. But wanted to just say that so many of the comments that came up today really address these habits that we think really stand out in a new way of working and thinking together. How can we be more inclusive so that voices come to the table? How can we hear those voices through an empathy process? How can we co-create together and where every voice is equal and a part of the decision making? And how might we work together reciprocally? And what that really means is give and take, just like I think Penny was really getting at, really making sure that decision makers who are in positions understand your position and that they're responsive to what it is you're asking them to do and holding them to that responsibility. Meanwhile, as they put resources out, finding ways to hold schools and districts and communities to the expectations and responsibilities that are part of that new process. So that reciprocal process is a new way of working that Penny really spoke to earlier. And I think we're all hoping that we'll see that kind of new day happen. So all to say, however, we're just forming now, right? We had a little bit of the storming last night, but we're forming today. So we're not looking for perfect outcomes today. We're looking for progress, right? We're looking for you to try some things, try them quickly, maybe fail forward, and then try again and build things over time. We want to have a bias towards action because as Lou's opening yesterday, we know we're taking on hard things, and you're not going to get these hard things done if you don't actually put some things in action and see how well they work. So we're hoping when you build your expectations that it's with that in mind. So in terms of the standing committee facilitators today, knowing that there won't be elected members from the council as of yet leading each standing committee, we have standing committee facilitators for creating vibrant learning experiences. And please stand as I call your name so people know who you are. Sarah Snipes, actually, from the department is not here today, but Rob Collins is here representing the department, and Karen Perry will be supporting creating vibrant learning experiences. Jennifer Stafford, Andre Rupp, and Susan Lyons, and I might also add Brian Gong, as well as Sandy Student, who just joined us today, flew in last night. They'll be supporting accelerating innovation and then building a bold new future with communities, Meredith Brewer and Lillian Pace. There's Lillian, okay. And John Alphys, thank you. You can stand, John. Yeah, won't scare anyone, okay. All right, so we're about to break, but so you know where you're going to go. I'm going to ask Karen Dodd to come up here and share where each of the standing committees is going to be, and also to recognize that you're going to work for the rest of the morning, go to lunch, and then go back to your committees and work some more before coming back here for some final activities. Karen?
Thanks, Paul. Okay, if you are with Bold New Future, so you have a blue dot, you are going to stay in this room. All right, and then they will let you know if they want you on one side or the other or in the middle. So just stay where you are until everybody else leaves. If you are with Vibrant Learning Experiences, you are going to the 4th floor, what yesterday was Exhibit Area C. That's on the 4th floor. So you'll go with Karen Perry and Rob Collins there. And then the last one, and that's a yellow dot on your name tag. And then the last one, the green dot, Innovation, if you are in that group, you will go to exhibit area D, also on the 4th floor. So D goes to the right, C goes to the left. There'll be somebody up there to let you all in, and your leaders also can get in there. All right.
The only better facilitation job than after lunch is the like last session of the last day. You know, that's prime time. This is going to be a pretty just quick sharing in small groups in directly addressing one of the issues that was brought up early this morning, which is it would be terrible if we recreated the silos we're trying to break down and just called them 3 new standing committee names, right? So we have to intentionally look for opportunities to share information between different standing committees. So we're going to compare the BHAGs that came out of each group, and we're going to start to find ways in which we can connect the work between standing committees between now and May. So we're just going to try something out. We're just going to try to put together one possible way in which we can de-silo the work of the council. All right. So this is going to be pretty quick. What we hoped you did leaving your last session was name your BHAG, right? Like, we got it. A lot of you took pictures of it. Maybe some of you have it stored in your memory banks. You're a better person than me. But we're going to pair up. So you with another person from your standing committee are going to find teams from other standing committees. So there should be a total of 6 people at any given table. 6 people, 2 people from each standing committee. So this is going to be a little bit of like a dance around the room, trying to track down folks who can that you can pair up with. And once you're together in those groups of 6, here's what you'll discuss. We're going to come back together in May. Each standing committee has established a big goal. You're going to take turns sharing out what that goal is. And then you'll ask yourselves, wait, well, month by month, is there something that we might want to share with each other? Connections we might want to make. Transfers of knowledge, transfers of getting people to attend each other's standing committee meetings. Whatever you decide, this is a brainstorm. So this is just an opportunity to put some ideas out there. We'll collect all of that, and then we'll start to put out some options to the standing committees of ways in which they might connect to one another. This is a great opportunity to just hear from other people too. What is your plan? What is your goal for the next 6 months? How similar is it to ours? Where are the areas of overlap? Okay, does that make sense? All right. Okay, mix and match. Find groups. Find yourself in a group 6. If it's a little, if it's a group 7 or a group of 5, because there's uneven numbers, that's okay. It's just matters that there's a representative from each standing committee, at least one. Just we're not going to share out. We're just going to compile and gather up these ideas. We'll pass them along to your committee leads. If you could just bring them over to the east wall, which is the one that I'm pointing at over here, for those of you who are not as directionally aware. Oh, in a second, yes, because Jason's going to reflect.
Start up.
And then just return to your seats after you're done.
So identify. I had asked some people to reflect on today.
Great.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're between everybody.
Let's stick it on Donnie.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, you're live.
Thank you. All right. I'm about to hand it over to Dr. Glass to help us close our very, very first convening of the Kentucky United We Learn Council. This is like a dream come true. And I just want to express my own personal gratitude. I was really appreciating that Lou brought that up as the gratitude as the overarching feeling that she was having right now. And I'm looking across it's looking across all the posters. It does feel like everybody is really excited about their standing committee work, but also really excited to talk across the standing committees. There's so much overlap. There's so much learning that everybody really wants to do, both individually and also together as a whole council. So I find that really inspiring, that we are going to be learning together, that as a learning organization and as an organization that's trying to cultivate more vibrant learning, I think starting with us, learning is a really inspirational thing. So I just want to appreciate that real theme across all of your collaboration conversations. So really excited about the roadmap ahead. It won't always feel like a straight line, but we will walk it together. And so I'm really excited about that. So I appreciate the opportunity to just seed that conversation. I'm so excited about the work ahead, but I'll hand it over to Dr. Glass.
Thank you. For those of you who have known and worked with me some, I detest long speeches and PowerPoints, and so you will not get either from me. But I did ask several folks throughout the course of the day to reflect on their experiences today, and so I'll ask each of them and bring the mic around just to relay what some of your colleagues and new friends have experienced over the course of the last 2 days. So we'll start with Renee.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Glass. Wow, it's been a wonderful 2 days. And we started out with words. Everyone had to give a word. So today I have 2 words. My first word is optimistic. And I was thinking about my quote, and I didn't want to misquote Winston Churchill, but he was a great statesman. And during World War II, he did many speeches and throughout his life. But the one that's so profound to me is when he says, "This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning." And I look at the time we spent together as the end of the beginning of our work ahead. And I'm very, very optimistic. I'm optimistic because I love my group, working with communities. I'm optimistic because of the role of working with students. And then I think about my associate commissioner. He sends us these Sunday messages. And oddly enough, the Sunday message was patience. So it's my second word. And in the words of Bruce Lee, in comparison to Winston Churchill, patience is not passive. On the contrary, it is concentrated strength. One thing, and this is what Dr. Darnell says, one thing most people are not good at is patience. In general, we just simply tend to expect immediate results or immediate satisfaction. We're not typically good with playing the long game. And we all fall into this trap, especially in the education profession. The voice inside me wants to push. We want to do more, change more, fix more, improve more. But then we think about Bruce Lee's quote, "Patience is not passive. On the contrary, it is concentrated strength." So my 2 words now is optimistic first for the work ahead and patience for the long game.
Our second reflector is Betty, who's got a collection of Chuck Norris quotes.
I'm going to throw away all my quotes. You don't want to hear my quotes. I think my reflection today is not often that you're in a meeting where people seem to be more excited at the end of 2 days of working than they were at the beginning of 2 days of working. And I think that says a lot, not only for the focus of the work, for the quality of the people, but for our facilitators who worked with us and helped us through all this. I think we were all very excited about this. I was in innovations and assessment accountability, and each of our groups talked about research, but when we met here, each of our larger committees was also talking about the importance of research, finding out from the past, what we knew from the past, what we know now, and what we need to know. And I think that's very powerful to say that we realize we can't just jump in, that planning's critical, that learning is critical, and that using that, then we will know the next step to take so that our next steps are very successful and we're going in the right direction. So I think it's been a very powerful 2 days. I am very fortunate for the committee and the individuals with whom I work. They're all very engaging. They come from different perspectives, and they are all have sincere desires to make this better in our state. And I think that is just wonderful. So personally, one thing that I have to say made my day, and that's Eddie. Eddie, where are you? Okay. So I have spoken, I was around with Karen. I'm going to tell you that was 30 some years ago. So it's been a long time. Eddie was in high school when we created these assessments, and we created performance-based assessments. So as our group thinks about that, Eddie said he loved going to the library and doing the performance-based assessment. It allowed him to demonstrate his learning in the way that was best for him. The fact that there was someone who loved those assessments, and we know he loved those assessments, made my day. And also tells me there's some real strength in what we're trying to do and the changes we make because people remember that. Thank you.
Thanks. And Rayshawn.
Thank you, Dr. Glass. Thank you all for this time. I tried to just jot down a few notes because I am not like Dr. Glass with the memory. But I've had the opportunity over these past 2 days to work with 2 wonderful groups and mingle with the rest of you all. And I'm excited about the future of Kentucky education. I'm excited about the possibilities that are to come. I experienced some wonderful things during the exhibitions. One specifically was Lawrence County and their L3 work. And it showed me that I can learn so much from even a smaller county that doesn't represent me. They're doing some great things. And I think we really should kind of dig deeper into their example. Also, during this time, I had several people or heard several people express that this was a waste of time. They've been in these groups before. They've seen it all before. I even witnessed someone today. They left. They said, I've been doing this for 20 plus years. And I want to say that that person, what their conversation and what their leaving said to me was not that they were giving up, but that they were just tired. And I want to let you all know that because of these past 2 days, I actually feel encouraged and inspired. I believe that we are shifting in the right direction. And I believe that these are the people that it's going to take to do it. I believe there's some more people at home, some little ones at school that are going to be necessary to make an impact as well. But I really believe we have a great foundation and that we're going in the right direction. I'll say this, and I hate to get long, but my children love school. My children, they go to a great elementary. My son graduated from that elementary, K through 5th. The principal and I, we butted heads professionally, but we butted heads. But it's because he knows I care about my children. I care about all the children and their education. That's why he recommended me to come and sit on this, because he sees the value in parents like me. Something I learned from Lawrence County is that there's a distrust, I guess not I learned, but I understood it even more. There's a distrust between the education department and parents and the community. but I believe we all have the same goal. We're just not communicating it effectively. I feel heard today by my engagement with you all, including Dr. Gass. I forgot your name, Brian? Donnie, I'm sorry. Donnie, I feel heard, and I really believe some things are going to change. I believe that we'll only be able to make a difference and make an impact from within, not leaving. Last thing, I believe that there's 3 things that will motivate us to continue to push through the barriers that we may encounter. And those things are, why do you want to change? Who do you want it for? And when do you want it to happen? So today I leave again encouraged and inspired. I personally, on the behalf of parents and students, I want to thank every one of you educators in this room. It makes me emotional, but I see the love and the passion that you all have for our students. I see the barriers that you all have faced. You guys didn't speak against the school and say, no, we're not doing that because they're stopping us, but you had to be the person in the middle. And you're fighting the same fight. So personally, thank you. Appreciate it.
Powerful. And in case anyone was wondering, there is a correlation between my not using notes and my speaking being very short. So that works together. When I mentioned that we were going to have a few reflectors, I had someone come up and say, I've really been thinking about today, and I have something I'd like to share. And it's one of our students. So I'll turn things over to Justin now.
Okay. I don't know how to follow that. But I'm Justin Dunning. I go to Lyon County High School, way over in Western Kentucky, land between the lakes, about 280 kids in my whole high school. And I'm the first one from my school to ever be on not only like the Commissioner's Advisory Council, but to ever hardly be involved in something like this. And yesterday, I was a little intimidated at first, and there's a lot of, strong people in this room, a lot of important people to me in this room. And so then today we got in our smaller groups, and I started hearing things, and I found that everything I heard was what I'd heard at home from the administrators. And it was all, adults want this from kids. And I was like, just hold on a second. And so we kind of hit a foundation in our group that we set in our big, hairy, audacious goal that to keep everything you do with the mindset that does it matter to the students that you're doing it for. Our vibrant learning, we classified vibrant learning as just the learning matter to the student. Because if you all can keep an open mind and keep everything you do that, it matters to us, and it will matter to us. And I'm a junior, so I'm graduating soon, but I have a brother in 8th grade and a sister in 3rd grade. And when she's in high school, if I can come back and just see her with a completely new learning style, then it would be, amazing. It's just amazing. And so I wrote something down here that the best learning happens when teachers have freedom and aren't focused on the test. And I noticed that in my elective classes because my elective teachers don't have a test. And then I also said that all students are involved and not just cream of the crop. That sometimes we get, I know I am, I know where I stand, and I know that there are students, who are different than me, but sometimes we kind of lose focus and we just focus on the students who are extremely successful in the school. But that's why we said, as long as it matters to the student, then it's a vibrant experience. And we want every single student in Kentucky to have that kind of experience. So I just want to thank you all.
Thank you, Justin. And we'll hear from our illustrious chair, Audrey.
I will make it quick, but I just want to say thank you again to everybody for coming today, coming yesterday, putting the most effort into this. I appreciate it as a student, but also as a future educator, because I know that people care. I said that yesterday, but I just want to reiterate that. I also want to take a second to thank our KDE staff with a nice big round of applause. And our external partners, because without all of these people supporting us, we couldn't be here and we couldn't make the changes that we're going to make. So I will say, going forward, as you go back to your communities, as you go back to your homes, take the energy with you. You can continue work on the goals in your committees, but also just work on innovation within your communities. There's things that are happening, highlight those, get involved with those if you aren't already, and make sure you're encouraging the people who are involved in those, because as you know from the difficult work that we've done over these last 2 days, it can be exhausting. And the more support we put into those people and those efforts, the better those efforts will be. So thank you once again, and I look forward to our future.
Thanks, Audrey. I wanted to make sure everybody got a chance to see Tony Constatman. Tony waved to everyone. So Tony's going to be following up with some of the media supports that you've seen some of our comms team in here taking pictures and recording things. And so they've been trying to document and share the work that you're doing. So be on the lookout from Tony, some of that information. Lou, anything you want to say?
No, I would just say that after these testimonials, I reminded of mine and Erica's old preacher used to say, if that doesn't light your fire, your wood is wet. Say about your way home.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything.
Yeah. The thing that I will leave you with, and I'm sorry if some of you may have heard me tell this story previously, but it keeps coming back to me as just an important reminder of the work that we're in. I heard an interview with a Harvard researcher named David Sinclair. And David Sinclair is a doctor and a medical researcher, and he's interested in the human lifespan and how long can a human possibly live. And thinking about aging, not as something that you just inevitably have to give into, but are there things that you can do to actually reverse it or correct it? And one of the advantages of being a medical doctor is that he can experiment on himself, which he does, and he can prescribe things to experiment on himself. And so he is in a journey on this question of what can be done to stop or reverse aging, and how long can a human possibly live. And so he was challenged about that and asked, how long do you expect to live? How long do you expect to live? And his answer stunned me, because he said it's not about expectation, it's about exploration. And I think that spirit is something that we can bring to this, because often we want to put in place these clearly defined, measurable outcomes and goals, and we develop logic models and plans and strategic efforts to ramp us up toward those with deliverable outcomes and project management tools and Gantt charts and all this stuff. And it never works out the way that we plan. It never does. There are so many things, so many complexities, beautiful complexities that are part of life that interrupt our plans. And so if we think about it in terms of not an expectation, but an exploration, where could we go? What could we do? That's a great way to think about this, I think. Thank you all so much for your time. Have a safe trip home.
The end of the beginning.